allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, welcome everybody. Here we go. Session 2. All right.
Never left.
All right, meetings begin. So the first thing on the budget, on the agenda, is the Finance Committee budget form review, and I'll turn that over to Brian.
Okay.
One thing before we start, Mr. Chairman, the note on the meeting will be in person.
Oh, yeah. This meeting will be in person, is being recorded. Okay, it's Thursday, November 7th.
So since we showed you this last, Gary and I have met about three times, I think, just to talk about it and how it might be implemented. But the objective of doing this is to increase the quality of budget article recommendations to town meeting by monitoring departmental performance and progress in achieving their mission statement. And essentially what we're doing is just reordering information that already exists somewhere in each of these departments. So if we go to the second slide, Gary assures me, I haven't seen all of them, but they all have mission statements. And in previous years, they have reviewed the prior year budget performance, both in writing and verbally, and they've also reviewed new budget in a summary in writing and also presenting to us. Major goals, some departments do some information on major goals, others do not, and we tend to comment on line item increases or whether they've gone down. And so what this does is essentially have them list, according to what their mission statement is, the key components of that mission statement, and then report against them in terms of how much they're spending and what they're actually achieving by those expenditures via some sort of metrics. So that's item 3. Departmental statements, item 4. That's what we see on the Munis sheets that are recapitulated by Gary and presented to us in various formats. Organization, we had asked a couple.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah,
What's
sure.
the difference between department statements and mission statement?
Department statements, I meant financial statements, I left financial.
Oh, okay.
But it's financial statements, sorry.
Okay.
So maybe you could stick that in, Gary, for next time around, it's financial statements. So organization, we asked a while ago for the departments to report on organization. Would they, some do, some don't, some have line block charts, but this actually asks for a line and block chart and talks about various aspects of the organization, how many people are on board, how many people they're looking to hire, how many empty slots there are. And I think at one time we talked about, which I don't have as part of this, but we also talked about, we could ask about succession planning under organization.
Yeah. One question?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah. We have an HR person, right, for the...
Yes.
Okay. Is there an organization chart?
Yes, we break those out. We have an organizational chart for the entire town, and then we also have them for individual departments.
Okay, all right.
So that should be easy to.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
So again, this stuff exists, it's just putting it in different order. The next one is, this is a new one, but I think we've asked for this in the past. We would like to know the cost reduction projects for the new budget year and also future potential projects. That is, we want to know what they're doing now in terms of budget cost reduction projects. And then revenue generation opportunities, we've often discussed that, asked them to report on that. And then finally, since it's, I won't call it free money, since you usually have to contribute, but grant opportunities that they're working on, which alleviates our budget strain by having the state or some other entity contribute to the town's budget.
Okay.
Yeah, I think on the next slide, too, is a good example of what a mission statement would look like.
Right.
That we took.
So we took this directly from Dartmouth Library, and the reason we picked the library, no other reason that when we first submitted this form last year, they came the close to providing as much information as we needed. I think there were a few things missing, but it was very close.
Yeah, very detailed.
Right. So I won't read that,
Yeah.
but when you turn to the next page, so this is the statement, and then they have to, we're asking them that they derive their major goals and number them. So if you looked at the previous written budget written mission statement, the first, and they can set whatever order these should be. I just number them, but the first one is a safe and welcoming place to meet with others. Number 2, a safe and welcoming place to read or to read, I don't know, a welcoming place to read or quietly. Resources to enhance their leisure time, that is patrons of the library. High-speed internet access to access the digital world. And 5, programs and resources designed to ensure young children will enter school ready to read, write, and listen. So under each of those, they would list the projects that they're working on and their expenditures under each of those. And this would also include the amount of what they pay in salary and benefits to monitor that particular, to implement and monitor that particular goal. And so under each of those, on the previous sheet, they would list as many as they possibly could that actually made a big difference in achieving their goals. The other thing is the way that they would limit this, because you could go on forever, I would think, limiting stuff, would be to use the 80-20 rule, which I always get this screwed up, but it's you spend 80% of your time working on 20% of all the projects you have. So, and usually your budget works out that way too. So that's the way they could keep a leash on not having to list everything that they possibly could think of under each of their goals. So it would be a short description with the purpose, completion date, or whether it's ongoing, budget reflecting comments in the description section, which they did before, and then source of funds, metrics description, and frequency of metric reporting. And the rest of it is simply no more or less than what shows up on the original 1 through 8 on the second sheet that I gave you guys. And that's this organization, cost reduction projects, revenue generation opportunities, and grant opportunities for the new budget year. So they would be expected to write all that out, submit it to us, and then give a presentation like they normally do here.
Yeah, the next 2 slides are just examples of goal, what expenditures can be used to accomplish some of the goals. So this is more maybe for the department head to understand what the bulk of that mission statement should look like, or their goals should look like. So I think, well, what I want to do is on the 18th of November, we have a department head meeting, and I'd like to present this to them and let the departments know that, this is a little bit, I want to say, more descriptive than it was last year. And if they have any questions at that time, they can ask those questions. And then before we even put this together for the FY26 budget.
And I will make myself available. I can't go on the 18th because I'm not going to be in the country, but after that, I will make myself available.
Okay, Janine?
So is this the only sheet that they're getting? They're not getting some sort of rehash from last year and this? They're just going to get this?
Yes.
Well, but you're talking about, there was some sort of, you're talking about the 2-page or 3-page memo?
No, just, I'm trying to remember, I don't have the example, but it seemed like while they took some of the requests last year, they mushed it in with the other form somehow, so it actually became more, in some cases, it became more confusing.
So I think the goal of this is have them follow this format.
Okay.
Have them fill out as much as to the best of their ability to answer these questions. Basically, it's asking them questions.
You're talking
Right,
about this one?
that form there.
Okay.
So that's the official form.
My intent was, this is all they're getting. I mean, it's there, I mean, it's very, I think it's very straightforward. This is your mission statement. This is how you break it out in terms of individual initiatives under each of the mission statements. And then under each of the initiatives, you put the costs involved and how you're doing in achieving that goal with the spending that you're doing, and then how often you check it and do metrics to make sure that you're on track.
Now, keep in mind, they'll still have to present to the finance department the budget. I mean, they still have to go and fill out the munis report for us so that we can key it into the Schedule A and ultimately get that done. So that doesn't go, this is not to replace that, I just want to be clear. This is to summarize their budget, pretty much.
Supplement,
Yeah, and then submit it back to the committee for their review.
And you can call up on the munis sheets, individual line items like we still do when we need to.
Right.
So let me ask a question.
Yep.
So it's just major goals that are in the mission?
No, what I did is it's arbitrary on their part. They have a mission statement. So if you look at page 3, which is the example of derivation of major goals from the library mission statement, you can see on page 4, this is what they submitted. You can see on page 4, on page 3 is what their mission statement is. And on page 4, all we're asking them to do is break out that in some sort of sequence that says, in this case, there are 5 major goals, and under each of those goals, that's what they're going to use to fill out the next section of the sheet, which is how much they spend to achieve those goals and how they're doing in achieving those goals by applying metrics to them.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at this as I was a department head.
Yep.
Okay, so it says a safe and welcoming place to meet with others, and then it says list the expenditures of supporting this goal. But then it says a safe and welcoming place to read and quietly. I mean, how do you?
Well, they could list the same, as far as I'm concerned, they could list the same thing twice.
Twice?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's part of their goal.
Okay.
Or because they're the ones that are doing this, and you apply the 80-20 rule, if they're covered, most of the expense is on the first goal, then I just arbitrarily put these 5 things
I
down.
was just gonna say, Brian, you wrote these, right? This is
Yeah.
not from the
No, this is-
library, you just use that as an example.
This one is from the
yeah.
written one.
The mission
Yeah,
statement.
mission
Mission statements from the library.
not the goals.
I arbitrarily took the goals,
Yeah.
just to show how it could be
just an
done.
example.
Yeah,
Yep.
There's no if they decide not to, let's take the library, for instance. I listed 5, but if they decide there's only 3, that's what they're gonna go with. I don't know.
yeah, I think the goal on the 18th will be to introduce this to them, and then have them take it back with them, and in the December department head meeting, come back with any questions they may have on the form.
I had a conversation today with Amy DePietro,
Yes.
because I am the liaison of the Council on Aging, and I said to her that I would sit with her once she got this form, so she was hoping, to your point, that she could get the form as quickly as possible, because I can see every department's gonna have this little learning curve issue on how to present it. So the faster we get it to them, so they can go through kind of the heavy lifting as far as what to present, we'd be better off doing that, and then, say, after the first of the year, when things get rolling with, with our budget meetings, what have you, that the form will be more or less, leveled off as far as what they
Yeah.
need to do, and they rather more, so we say, smooth sailing.
I agree with you. I think that's, that when I think about the budget presentations we've seen in the past, there are a couple of departments that I think are not gonna have trouble with this at all. Because they kind of think like this, and this is how they've presented information, and then I think there are gonna be some departments that have no idea what we're looking for. So if you're not gonna be here on the 18th,
Yep.
I think it would probably be a good idea to schedule it when Brian's going to be here, because I think you would be able to answer any questions and then to try to find out who needs help. And if somebody needs help, they can ask you, they could ask their liaison.
Yeah, I think the goal on the 18th is I want to give it to them so that they at least see it. And then any questions that they have on the form, they would come back to us in the December meeting.
And I
And
think it's
I'll
going
be
to,
here then.
I think it's going to be hard for some people to separate out what are their goals, their major projects, from just regular operating, what it takes to run the department, that's gonna be tricky for some people, I think.
I agree.
Well, except that the reason, oh, well, maybe, I have no
Yeah.
idea. But that's why I took the mission statement and broke them down into what the departments are supposed to be doing, at least for the library in when I looked at this.
So then you would say that what would be considered just regular operating should be fit under some goal.
Yeah,
And-
because,
okay,
let's say,
okay.
I'm just making this up, I
Yeah,
have no
yeah,
idea.
yeah.
DPW, for instance, maintenance of roads could be one.
Yeah,
So then it would list
right.
all the stuff they do for maintenance of roads, and then it would list, and that would include salaries.
And I would think there's gonna be a couple of departments whose project in this next year is gonna be setting up a way to collect metrics. Because I think we have some departments that do this. I think about the library, they like went through, and then you think about other people that don't think of it that way. And they'll have to really make a goal of this year to figure out how they're gonna collect that.
I mean, so
data.
fine, as far as I'm concerned, if they got through, let's say, maintenance of roads again, and there was a metric missing or metrics missing, that's fine, they can say, we don't have it right now, but we're
I
gonna.
think it's important. I mean, we've been asking them to say, how do you know you're doing a good job?
Right.
Forever. And so this is gonna be the way
Oh,
to,
but when I said we don't have it right now, the other thing that comes on with it is we'll put it in
Right,
to get it for next
exactly.
year. And the thing I like about this is, if they're performing very well on a goal, and it's beneficial to the town, and it's within their mission statement, I mean, it gives them a way to come back and say, we need more money, because
Right.
this is what we're doing.
right?
And it's also a good way to spotlight their department, too. I mean, a lot of times when the mission statement or the goals, they just, the public will not remember that. But being talked about in public session, I think, is important for the departments to be out there and telling the public what good jobs they're doing, too.
Is this the time that we can talk about the budget presentation that we get from you guys? I had a couple of things that I wanted to ask to be included.
Well,
So,
let's, before we switch.
Yeah.
Let's just, any questions on this?
I do have one comment on this. I actually love the format. It's great. And it's really easy to follow. I think departments will be able to follow. Like, it's written out beautifully. But there's one thing that I am curious about is sometimes we see there's a huge increase in a budget, and I was wondering if there's a way we could add in here or talk about a way that we can highlight, okay, well, if you're asking for more than, the expected 4% increase in your budget, an explanation of why.
That would be under the goal, under their individual goals.
All right.
Because what they would do is say, okay, this is a major goal.
Yeah.
We're spending X number of dollars, and we're getting this sort of result, and I hope I'm answering your question. And
I think-
And if they said it was declining, perhaps, and it's
Yeah.
important to the town, then they could say, we need more money.
Right, but in the past, we've seen some line items that have a significant increase, and just a way to make it really black and white, where they say, okay, well, listen, if you're asking for more than 4%, we want a detailed
Oh,
explanation.
yeah, well, yeah, I would expect this would allow us to look at why
Yeah.
something went up.
But sort of like a checkbox on here to say, hey, are you in your 4% or whatever it
Oh, we
is?
could do that, too.
Okay, you checkbox that off, we don't need detail, but if you're
I just-
more,
I actually have a suggestion on that when we get to
Yeah.
it, but if there are any other questions on this.
To Carrie's point, I agree. One of the things we look at when we're looking at the budgets, at least I do, and I think others, when they're looking at the numbers, is the deviations, up or down. The question always comes up, well, last year that line item was $120,000, now it's $140,000, why? Or, last year it was $100,000 and it's $60,000, why? So maybe separate from this form, we assign a figure, a 5, 10, whatever is a percentage of it, there's a deviation in a line item, up or down, there's got to be an explanation with it. ahead of time with us
Like a
on it.
variance, threshold
Yes.
variance,
What's that?
like a variance threshold.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Because we always put you on the spot, and sometimes you don't have the answer. So if we let it known ahead of time that whatever that threshold may be, 10% hypothetically, variance, they have to, in writing to you, and so when you're presenting, or they are presenting to us, We have the answers already.
So can I just, one of the things which I didn't read, which is under item 3, expenditure detail for goals, the first check mark says, maybe this answers your question, Carrie, the first check mark on, which, I should have numbered these, 1, 2, 3. The one that has expenditure detail on it, if you could flip through, Gary. Keep going. Oh, yeah, okay, hold on, go back, yeah. So this says, a short description to include the purpose, comment, or whether it is just starting up, succeeding, working,
Yeah.
or as expected, improvements needed to the coming year to include spending increases, decreases, or level funding. I don't know, does that answer your question?
I don't think I have a question. I think I had more of a recommendation.
Oh, okay.
I mean, my suggestion would be, well, it's not up on the screen, but on the form, if you look at the form,
Yeah.
we could put something under here, like almost under this bullet here.
Which number?
Yes.
Number 2, next year budget summary.
Oh, okay, that's good.
We could put another bullet that says, variance, any variances, explain variances that result in the 10%, or whatever the number
Yeah,
is.
that'd be good, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think we can add that in there.
Yeah, I just don't want it to get buried in where they don't really look at it or notice it. But I think Terry had a comment that she wanted to talk about. Terry?
Yeah, I mean, if we're done, any other questions on this part?
I just, you talked about the percentage, but I think there should be a dollar amount too, because something could be $200 this year and it went up to $400, and that's 100%.
Right.
It's not, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So there should be a dollar amount there too.
I think one time we kicked around anything over 50 grand. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember that a couple of years ago. Yeah.
There are going to be some increases that don't have to do with goals. When we think about what we talked about in capital, that there are a couple of things that the capital committee is saying should be incorporated in their operating budget. And there's a column on the munis sheet that says comments. And my feeling is on something like that. So for example, the school department uses, say, $200,000 for technology. Up until now, it's been part of capital. It's really not a capital expense because it's something that is part of the operating budget. And we've asked that people put that in their operating budget. So we'll see an increase, but it's not because it's a goal, it's because of a change in budgeting. So there's a comment column here.
Yeah.
And that, to me, would be a good place to put that. What I wanted to ask on this munis sheet, and I had asked you about this last year, but I wasn't clear about what I was looking for. So in the, I'd like to see a column added that said, under profession, under the staff, an FTE number, not the person, not the name. Just, so under professional, this reflects one position. Under clerical, this reflects 1.5 positions, so that we can see what, we always ask that question and we never can really tell. So if we could, I know you said it's a little tricky, you might have to get somebody to work with you on
Yeah,
the sheet.
the only thing with that report, that's a canned report that we get from UNO, so we really can't touch those, but we did download it last year, and I think I supplied.
You gave, but what you gave me was the FTE report with all the names and the numbers. I don't care about who it is, I just want to know.
Totals.
To me, you're saying this report can't be amended at all?
No, we can't
No,
add columns.
that's can't, but you can make
That
a,
is
but you can, but Chair, you could do a spreadsheet.
Load it into Excel, yeah.
In a.
Yeah,
as
I don't
the
want to make
addendum.
extra work, I just feel like that's
What we could do is,
a simple thing that,
what we could do is take like the Schedule A and put like at the Schedule A,
Rather than
not for
ju-
purposes of the town meeting, but for our purposes here, like, treasurer's
rather than
office,
making
3.
another report though, could you put it under comments? Where it says professional?
Yeah, we'd
could
have to
you
write
say
'em in. We'd have to write it in.
1.0 FTE,
We'd have to-
1.
yeah, we'd
Just
have
so
to-
we know how many FTEs.
Yeah, we'd have to write it in, but we can do that.
And then the other request that I have is, there are a lot of things in our overall operating budget that are funded through grants. And we don't see those reports. So for example, again, school department, I know they'll have a special ed grant and they'll have like a professional development grant. And then it would be helpful to me, because to me, that's part of the whole budget. And we don't see it. So if there's a way to get those reports, I don't want to create more work though, Gary. I'm not asking you to do another, I just wish there was a way for us to get a report on the grants.
Yeah, I can get that from the town accountant. We have a list of all the grants for both the town and schools.
I know you're busy and I don't want to add more
That's
work.
an easy report to run.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just feel like that would help us all see, because I know in the school department, it's a significant number.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
covers
We can
that
run that.
budget.
And also, one other thing, I thank Brian for working on this with me, but, we do send out the memo, and I think, the budget memo, and I think that maybe, now that I'm thinking about this, we add the line in the budget, budget memo that says, any variances that accumulate to $50,000, please note those on your form to the finance committee. So we can just reiterate that in the budget memo when I send that out.
Hey, didn't you have a problem with 50 as being too much?
Or whatever number the committee wants to see, I'd have to know. Because you're right, if it's a percentage, we don't want to be looking, I'm sure the committee doesn't want to be looking at $10 or $100 here. The bigger items,
So the question is it 20,000, 25, 50?
I think that I remember, to Brian's point, I think a couple of years ago, the committee had set a threshold of like 50,000, plus or minus.
Okay.
So we can use that
Okay,
I'll add that to the budget memo.
all right.
All right, so the plan on this is you're going to introduce it to them on the 18th,
Yes.
and then.
Have them
then
chew
we'll
on
have
it a little bit
I'll come
and-
back, and we can meet at whatever you want.
Yeah. All right. Anybody with any other questions?
So we're not starting to meet until February?
Well, no, so the next thing on the agenda is the calendar. So what I did was I put a preliminary calendar, draft calendar together for the committee, just so that we have something, and you have it there in your packet. I'll just go over this with everyone, just so that we have dates in place and we know kind of what we're going to be doing for FY '26. So November 18th, I plan on sending out the memo to the department heads. Excuse me, November 18th, we're going to meet with the department heads to go over the form. We just spoke about that. November 27th, I'll send out the budget memo and the CIPC memo to the department heads. December 27th, those budgets and the CIPC requests will be due back to finance. January 6th through January 17th, as you know, I meet with all the departments, so I plan on setting up schedules with all the departments. I think some of the committee members had joined me back a year ago when we did this in my office, and that's all the departments. It includes schools, it includes all of them, police, DPW. And then February 5th, 12th, 19th, and 26th, I plan on setting up meetings with CIPC to discuss the capital requests. And then February 6th, 13th, 20th, and 27th, I plan on setting up meetings for budget review forms. So set aside those dates just to review the forms that we've gotten back from the departments. And then March 6th, 13th, 20th, 27th, start the hearings with the school, the DPW, police, and then any other department that feels the need to come in front of the finance committee to discuss their budgets. And then April 6th, have a draft FY26 budget for review. And then April 10th, 17th, 24th, plan on the committee to review the warrant and rationales and the budget message. Start working on the budget message. May 16th, all the documents are due to town clerk. And then June 3rd is the spring annual town meeting. So we can adjust any of these dates if we feel it's too aggressive, if we feel it's not aggressive enough, if we want to add more dates. This is only draft, obviously.
Question?
Sure.
Do you have a date on when the warrant articles are due?
I confirmed from the clerk today that the June 3rd date the June 3rd date, I kind of worked backwards with this calendar. So the 3rd is the town meeting.
Right.
Everything is due to her by the 16th of May. Yeah, maybe we should put a slot in here for
Because that's
due
really
dates
the
of warrant
caveat,
articles.
when is that warrant, the warrant articles have to be in, because in case, whatever, there's citizens petitions, who knows?
Right.
When are those due?
Yeah, I'll add that line item in here for warrant
What date
articles.
is it?
When I checked
I don't
with,
think he
when I checked
knows
with the
yet.
clerk,
He hasn't got it.
yeah, they haven't really developed that calendar yet, as far as like the due date of those warrant articles, but, yeah, that's key, we should know that, because that kind of drives
Because
what
we'll know
would.
that nothing else will change after
Right.
that. Well, I shouldn't say that. 'Cause- Oh, I just cursed it.
Yeah, I'll add that in there, I'll confirm that with the clerk, as soon as she gets better data, but, so this is, I mean, like I said, we can adjust these dates, but I think it gives a sense of what, we should be looking at for fiscal '26.
So we'll start meeting on February 6th, am I reading that right?
Well, to gather all the data and to do everything,
February 6th, yeah.
we can make it January, but then I'd have to push everything back. I want to give the departments at least a month to work on their budget. So we're starting essentially in November. Last year, we started because of discussion of an override and not knowing where we were. We started in January, February, even the beginning of the budget. I sent the budget message out, I think, January 7th. So this gives a little bit more flexibility, and we can add dates between, if I get done with the departments between January 6th and January 17th, maybe we move some of the meetings for CIPC and Finance Committee, up a week. We can move that schedule up a week, but I just want the committee to have something in
Gary,
preliminary.
there's a person back there.
I think he's looking for a meeting, probably. He's the wrong room. He's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah, so what I'd like the committee to do is look at this, and if they feel that there's changes that you feel that you want to add or adjust, that you send them to me, but I'll make that adjustment for the warrant articles, definitely.
Okay.
Any other comments on that, or, okay, so, let's try to get a consensus. In the past, we started at 4, we did 5, we did 6. How does, Melissa, I said we need another member, she said, well, can you start later, but she hasn't come back to me with anybody. So I just want to get,
Meet later.
Later than
Well,
six, later than
Push
six.
this back later.
I think 6 was the later.
4, 5, and 6.
Oh,
That's two.
Because I kind of, for Carrie, I mean, and.
I'll make whatever work. I always make whatever work. Whatever
So
time you do,
what do you wanna
I'll
do?
just make it work.
What do you want to do?
I mean, keep in mind, we may have to, we may have to add dates. I mean, this is just
Right.
add dates.
So you're talking about when we should start.
Yeah,
Or-
what time?
Oh, I don't know what
Start
time.
times,
What's
like,
the starting time?
I thought you were going to wait until you had some applications from people, so we understood
Yeah.
if they were working folks that
Well, we got some time.
got out at
yeah,
5 or whatever.
Yeah.
Right,
Well, we got some time, because we're not gonna, February 6th, so.
Yeah, it'd be, I mean, I don't know, like I had mentioned, I know we'll have to probably make, I want to probably touch base with Melissa to see if, we should probably maybe advertise that some
Yeah, she did.
places.
She usually does. She
She
didn't.
did. I went, the bulletins on the TV channel, they had all the positions open, but not FinCom. So,
On the time, I'd like to get input from Gary. You're wearing two hats right now, and, in my opinion, it's whatever easy for you to me, whether it's 4, 6, 7.
I mean, to me,
What works best for you would,
I'm at the, it's the pleasure of the committee. I mean,
No,
if you
but
wanna-
still,
if you
again,
want,
you're wearing two
I
hats
appreciate
and-
that, but I think that if it's easier to have a majority, I'd rather have a majority than
Yeah.
have to worry about, I know there were sometimes last year we couldn't take votes on stuff, so, but I think if it's 6 and it's more convenient for the committee, then that's perfectly fine with me, 6 o'clock. If it's easier
why
for the
don't we-
committee.
I mean, I can do 4, 5, or 6.
I can do 4, 5, and 6.
I can do 2, 4, 5, or 6. I'm not-
4, 5, or 6.
Bill?
Well, 6 is fine for me. I'm retired anyway, so.
Yeah, but 4, can you do 4, 5, and 6?
Absolutely.
Carrie?
we were doing it, 4 before?
Yeah, we're doing
And
it
that was
4.
okay. Yeah, 4, 5, or 6, it's
Okay.
fine.
Terry?
Same thing.
5 or 6. 5 or 6, okay. All right.
So I'd rather, having said that, I'd rather do it earlier than waiting till 6. But I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
I agree, I mean, preference, what, I can do any of them, but 5 would be better than
Yeah,
6.
okay.
I'd rather.
Kind of
Alright.
spoiled us when you moved it early, Bob.
Yeah, okay.
Except for.
So,
Do you want to wait for the new committee member, or?
yeah, well,
Well, we can
tentatively,
change it.
Yeah.
let's put it this way. 5 seems to be, everybody can do 5, you know,
Yeah.
so.
I mean, we have time
But
to-
we'll,
we have
we'll
time to
see,
see.
we'll see what comes out. Okay,
We're leaning towards 5.
yeah, lean toward 5 to 7.
Okay. So, the next thing on the agenda, Mr. Chairman, you had me bring the, your actuals, or revenue.
It's on here, right? Or is it-
You should have a copy of
Is there any way you can make that bigger, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is a work in progress, so this is, and I'll explain why.
So let me ask a question. So the objective of doing the form this way is?
The objective is to see if we have a spending problem or a revenue problem, or both, or neither. And also, the thing is, and what started me on this was when capital planning did their long-term planning, that's just one part of the equation. It's how you fund that over the many, many years. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna tell you what I got. Is there a way you can make that bigger?
Yeah, you're not gonna see the whole.
So this is your form?
Well, I got it from, some of it I got from Donna Fernandez.
Fit everything on the,
All right, so let's just look at the top line. So these are the taxes. And so there were some things that surprised me, and these are actuals. These are actuals, okay? And, so I was, you know, what I did was, okay, year over year from, it's 3 years, over 2023, over 2022, and then 2024 over 2023. So personal property taxes, went up 7.3%, which I thought was a lot high, you know, I was surprised at how high that number was. Real estate taxes were Proposition 2.5, which is the majority of the money there, is 3.5%. I thought it'd be closer to 2.5%, but obviously new growth is in there. And then, so you kind of go down and look at, these are all boat excise. The boat excise, I guess there's an issue with when the bills went out. That's
yeah, they're working on, new software to try to get this mitigated.
Yeah,
Uh,
but I
to
mean,
try to
really,
get
personal property taxes, real estate, motor vehicle, and the meal tax are all the big ones, right? So total revenue from the residents is 82 million, which is a 4.2% average between the 2 years for revenue. So then you go down to the next one. I said, okay, these are small numbers, but they you know, you had to add them in. It's 8.2%. It's just fines and fees and stuff like that. So then just keep it good now. So now go to state revenue, and then you've got the and this is where I think the major problem is, you know, the Chapter 70 money is the big number. It's only averaging 2%. It's only averaging 2%. So,
This number here is the, if you remember, that was the last,
yeah, school construction, yeah, so, yeah, I have, if you go, there's another tab there, and I eliminate that. But just keep, you know, stay on that other one, stay on the actuals. So then I said, okay, so what are the actual expenses? Okay, and there's issues with this, but these are the numbers that I got from Donna, and I'll explain what the issues are. You know, general government went up 9.5% on average, so to me, that's something I would throw at you, Gary.
What, can I ask a question?
it's-
So,
what caused that?
Are there definitions of
What is
terms,
it?
like what is general government?
Yeah, what's concluded in that?
That would be all your departments, public safety,
But is that,
No, not public safety.
Public safeties.
No, public
Safety
safety
has
by
its
itself.
own
Basically,
ordinance.
so that would include
so
like,
is it salaries
Yeah, I
and
was gonna say, it's a
expenses?
salary.
the majority probably,
Well,
yeah, and it's contractual, so.
But it's basically town hall, right?
Town hall, right, yeah,
Yeah,
that-
it's
yeah.
basically town hall. So public
Oh, you broke-
safety is the
yeah, you broke public
police,
safety out.
community services are,
Aging,
council on aging.
yeah.
And these are all, these are like official, these are hard coded into the financial
this is
reporting.
basically the Schedule A. This is
Yeah,
how the Schedule A
yeah.
is broken out.
Public Works, obviously, DPW. I broke down Dartmouth schools from New Bedford Voc, because we have no control over New Bedford Voc. Employee benefits, you know, property, insurance and debt
Pensions.
service. So the, so I'm looking at this and I'll say, okay, what caused general government to go up so much? And, you know, Dartmouth schools, 4.2%. You can see that if we're getting Chapter 70 money at 2%, that's where some of the stress is coming from. And so, one of the things that Jim got back to me, I was in a meeting today, most of the day, so Jim did get back to me, because I asked him, I said, okay, what are all in the Dartmouth schools, you've given me that expense, but you pay from school choice certain amount of monies that don't show up here because they come from a revolving fund. So what I'm trying to get to, and that's why this is I'm working on this, is what is our true expenditures. You know, we'll have to separate out, you know, where the money is, because what happens is, if the grant goes away, we still have those expenses, you know? So I'm trying to get a feel for those general expenses. If you go to the next tab, what I did, it's basically the same information, but I eliminated, if you go down, I eliminated the school construction, because the school construction was there for 2 years, and it's not, we're not getting reimbursed for any school construction, because that was the old high school.
Yep.
So I eliminated that because that's like a one-off situation, and if we do, and I do want to talk about schools, building schools at the end of this, but, so the general, if you eliminate school construction, our average revenue is 4.1%, right? See that, that's everything added together, okay? And then you go down to the expenses, and there I eliminated debt service. The reason I eliminated debt service is because everything else up there is an actual expense related to mostly employees. And a debt service is a different decision. You either decide to spend, you know, debt, so it's a different decision. So I kind of eliminated the school construction and debt service to look at our, you know, the cost of actually running the town. And so that's, so it's, the average is 3.5% in expenses, which is, I think is really kind of, I mean, I think to run a 3.5% increase every year, I mean, we're not overspending money. If you can go back up, just, what was it, 4.2? 4.1. So we're taking in 4.1, and we're spending 3.5. So obviously the difference on a yearly basis goes to capital. And this is where I'm getting to the long-term capital plan.
Right.
So if these trends continue, do we have enough money to fund capital? We obviously can do some capital, but, you know, the big requirements that we have coming forward to us. So, you know, we spend so much, and the reason I'm doing this is we spend so much time talking about just budgets, and it gets somewhat political, but this actuals is what actually is going out the door. And you really can't understand budgets unless you understand actuals.
Yes, very true.
Yeah, when Donna and I developed the budget, when I've developed the budget in my projections, we do look at the actuals, because we obviously have to report that to the Department of Revenue.
Yeah.
So, let's say, for instance, last year we budgeted, we received 5.5 million in motor vehicle receipts. I'm only making that up. The next year, I'm not gonna budget 5.9 million. If the trend was 100,000 each year increase, I'm gonna be conservative and budget an amount that I feel that's realistic, that we're gonna collect. So we do look at actuals. Actually, we look at them in monthly increments.
But I guess
This is
in those
rolling it up every
expenses,
year.
on those expenses, what I'm looking to do is, okay, what is temporary? I wanna, because they use certain funds to pay for expenses that don't show up here. So I'm trying to get a feel for, you know, what that number looks like, across the board, to make sure that, okay, this is what we're actually spending on expenses, regardless of the, you know, the grants and, numbers. And, can you go back up? And this, no, I just want to get the, state revenue.
So all this is state revenue,
Yeah,
about 14 million.
so so my question is it worth asking our state rep and state senator to come in and explain to us why we only get 2%?
I think
They
that's.
probably won't show up.
Everybody in the state knows that that calculation is wrong.
Yes.
Or off, or whatever.
Yes, that's right.
But it's a much bigger problem to solve
It
than
is.
asking our state rep to come in
I know,
and
but then-
admit that.
Okay?
Well, it's not to say, to Jenny's point, it's highly political, as we all know.
Yeah.
The municipalities, the urban centers get most of the money.
Yeah.
And the suburbs, for years, have been not, because it's just the way the demographic, and just the way the formula is laid out. And it would take forever, and we're not gonna get changes. So we have to really solve our problems from within. I like what to switch the subject a little bit, I like what I see here. But I'm also thinking to using this format, and then you, next to these line items, you could have the plan, say, you could have your planned FY '24 budget, then you could have the actuals, and then you could see the percentage of difference, and say, the guideline will say 4%, but actually now we're seeing 5% instead, then that raises a red flag. I mean, I'm just making
No,
points,
that-
but it would be more detailed, you know, something, I know, Bob, you've used it, I know I have in business too, it's a lot more detailed, and it gets right down, not to be too pithy, but it gets down to where we should be as far as analyzing things.
So, so I agree with that. You always use actuals.
Yes.
Number one. Number two, if I was just looking at this, but not including the caveats in that it doesn't cover all the expenses we can look at, this looks like we're okay going forward if everything was to remain the same and there weren't any hidden expenses. Is that right? Because it's 4 point,
Yeah,
with all the caveats
Yeah.
thrown in.
yeah. But if you remember, 3 years ago when COVID hit, I said, inflation started hitting, I said, Proposition 2.5 works in a low inflation environment. So it didn't really work for 2 years. It didn't, you know, so we're kind of getting back to that. But there's always a delay. When inflation goes up, goes up quicker. There's a delay between when wages get caught up.
Yeah, so you're usually around 2 years.
Yeah, there is a delay. So you know, and I use these years because, you know, if you look at like union negotiations and things like that that are happening today, they're coming in at a much higher thing. So even though these numbers look fairly reasonable, you know, we have.
Yeah, all contracts will be up in FY '26 too.
There's gonna be pressure that's gonna have to take over a couple
So
of
I would
years.
go back to, maybe in support of that, school construction or school expenses or whatever. It seems to me with all the different, that, and then all the different programs that longer-term capital planning committee is working on, would throw these numbers out of whack, because every year they'd be going up because there was more debt service and there'd be more.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
well,
yeah,
That's true.
Would throw that,
Yeah, well, so as far as like the long-term capital items, let's say for
we're
instance.
talking about the committees looking at the 10.
Right. Let's say we want to build a brand new school, and that school's $200 million, and we're going to get 50% reimbursement, which is probably Dartmouth's reimbursement rate. We'd then have to borrow for $100 million. That would be outside the debt limit, so we would have to borrow, so how that works is, we get the revenue in, and it doesn't really change the budget, because we're getting the money in to pay for that. That's above and beyond the debt limit, the levy
How does
capacity.
it impact my taxes?
Your taxes will go up, but the levy is increased for those number of years.
That's what I'm saying.
The only permanent increase to the levy is an override. But anything else that's outside the levy limit is only for the number of years for that term of the loan, for 20 years or 30 years. And then the levy limit theoretically goes back to what it was.
Yeah, so if you could, so if that longer-term capital group could, on a line item basis, come up with a projected number over the year 6, 7, 8, or I guess year 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that would be added to the,
Yeah, we have those numbers. We presented that to them.
okay.
And what it would cost because what it would cost on the average person's tax bill.
But I guess what
that
I'm asking
increase
you
would
is,
be.
if we were to input those numbers in here as line items, like a new sewage plant, a new, et cetera, et cetera, that'll throw these things away.
Well, no, it won't, and here's the reason why, is because you're gonna increase the expense, but you're gonna also increase the revenue, because it's gonna be a excluded debt. So you're gonna borrow for the money that you're spending. Then after the number of years is over for that loan, let's say it's 30 years, theoretically, that levy limit goes back to what it was. So it only increases the levy limit for a certain amount of time.
For the time of the loan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
and the voters, the town meeting doesn't have to vote on that?
Debt exclusion, yes. Has to go to the ballot. Town meeting and then the ballot.
And the ballot has to go,
Yeah.
okay, so so the debt exclusion has
Yeah.
to go, okay.
And most of the
So-
time, projects in that extensive,
Extensive, yeah,
it's
yeah.
usually a debt exclusion.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the
But-
budget could not support that kind of,
But I guess, you know, like I said, there are a couple of surprises in here. One was general government, and I think you got to drill down on that. You know, the other thing is public works. That's the other surprise, because, you know, you got to look at the pluses and the minuses, 0.9. So I'd like Tim Barber to take a look at that. I mean, I know he's fairly new, but, you know, I know we haven't had any snow in a couple of years, but still, you know, it seems like public works isn't going up enough. And,
Well, I think that's why they come back at every town meeting and ask for $1 million. So a lot of it's deferred road maintenance, I think.
okay.
And this, at the last meeting I attended, whatever they come up with for that deferred road maintenance isn't enough to maintain the road infrastructure going forward. It's just, the $1 million that they asked for is just like a patch.
Yeah.
the number I think that they presented at Capitol was something like, some
40
100 million or whatever
Oh, I
the
thought it
number
was
was,
like
to do the
40 or
entire
50.
town and
It
be,
was 100 million.
I think that,
Yeah.
Terry, wasn't that the number that they had given us? It was a large number.
Say that again?
When Tim presented the long-term about what he would need, like, to do the roads, if all the roads in town.
Oh, it was 10 million.
Yeah, it was $10 million.
To do all the roads, the way they should be
On an
done.
annual
Yeah.
basis.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, what-
So that number would, $10 million would go, if they were doing it correctly.
yeah, I think the thing with the long-term planning, one of the goals was just to try to anticipate what's in our future and start putting it down on paper and start thinking about incrementally where could we go? I don't think it was set up to say, we're gonna do this right now, and this is how we're gonna move forward.
No, I agree,
Because
yeah.
a certain amount of it, like with the schools, it's gonna be a political environment around what is MSBA willing to do, how long is the process, to get there. Like, they're talking about the roof right now on the high school. The process that's involved anyway in working with them is
Yeah, and it's different for each project. I mean, water and sewer, I mean, it's, to Terry's point, it's not like we put an application into MSBA or to Clean Water Trust or whatever it is, and then tomorrow they're gonna approve it. It's a lengthy process.
But to try to avoid the reactive experience that we've had for years,
Yeah,
where something comes up and, we gotta figure out how we're gonna pay for it.
At least it's on the
right away.
radar. I mean, that's really what.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
But if we can just go through and just talk about a couple of these things. So general government is a surprise, and like to drill down. Public safety, that's the police department. The police department has a big advantage in that they can, if a company comes in and they need police, they get paid for that. So they have a revenue source that they can offset, the cost of the police. That's why I don't think they've asked for a budget increase since I've been here. But the other thing that public safety I won't say it's an advantage, but when they do their budget, they can never seem to get enough police officers. So they budget at full capacity and they never.
They always have open positions,
Yeah,
yeah.
they always have open positions.
That's true in DPW as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
They
That's what?
That's true in DPW.
It's kind of maybe what you're
Yeah.
seeing here as far as,
Yeah,
they're
community-
unable to fill positions.
so both of those things haven't been said. If you wanted better service from DPW, that would indicate, and because it's only 0.9, I believe, that they have a case for asking for budget increases.
Well,
If they can spell out,
budget increase, well, maybe budget increase for better benefits, because they have the budget for people, but they can't get people because they can't.
well,
pay
I mean, it's still, it would be an expense to get the department up to its proper operating level so it can do the proper services for the town.
but see.
But is that the idea?
Well, see, with the public works, this is why you gotta drill down, because the first year they're down 11%, the second year are up 14.3, so that's a
Yeah.
big difference. So in that case there, what caused that? And I think that's kind of the stuff that we need when they do budget presentations is, what caused these variances. I mean, personally, I think 4.2%, if that's the number for the schools, is a reasonable amount of spend. In other words, I look at that and say, well, they're not overspending. I mean, 4.2, it's a huge part of the budget, but it's not, they're pretty close to what our average revenue is. And,
I think one of the things we learned, though, is that that's what they've been getting, but that's not what they need. And what they need is probably closer to 6.
Just like I mentioned with
Yeah, and so
DPW.
what we want to do is try to understand why they need closer to 6 and what's going into that. And I think,
but once I take out the school choice and the grants and left that, we'll see if that number stays regular. Obviously, you can't do anything about New Bedford Vogue. But employee benefits, I would have thought that it went up a lot more than 1.3%. So that surprised me. And
next round of contracts.
It's gonna go up, yeah.
yeah. And then property and liability insurance, 6.9. I don't think that we have a lot of control over that other than.
No.
We've all
but-
experienced that.
Well, I got my house insurance. Oh, my God. I can't believe how much it went up. So,
I want to
Okay.
highlight when you were just talking, when Terry was just talking about Dartmouth schools, for the past 2, maybe 3 years, they have had people retire and not replace positions. So I think if we were replacing positions, that 4.2 would be much higher. And I just wanted to kind of make a point, because Terry said they probably would be more at 6. So they keep squeezing their budget, and it's just something to be aware of.
I think it's true with DPW as well. I don't think the budget really reflects what they need at full capacity.
Yeah, no, I
you
agree.
know,
I
Or
agree.
even on a schedule.
Exactly.
Say you didn't get the 10 million. If they had a schedule, if we're gonna do these roads every year. We're still coming from a place with some of these budgets where it's like when you're poor and you don't say what you need, you just say, what can I get? And all right, I'll do the best I can with that. And that, it seems like that's
I
how
think,
it's been.
I think that was the philosophy of finance here in Dartmouth.
Yeah.
At least I've been doing this for about 4 or 5 years, and that was the impression I got.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's necessarily correct. I think it should be put it all out there and then make a
Yeah.
decision on what you can spend for what services that keeps most of the people, a good percentage of everybody happy.
Or
And
like you
knowing
said
that some are not gonna be
initially,
happy.
if
I like that,
let's
Brian.
put it all out there and say, my goals for the next year are this. If you could just give me this, I'll do it and I'll show you that we did it, and then maybe we can phase in the next thing and the next thing after that.
Or you might be able, with more of a handle on it, to figure out there might be other sources of funds
Yeah.
you could tap into.
I don't think you and I have talked about it. I don't know where we're gonna get funds, but I think, you know, in my previous job, we brought in the Department of Ed, we brought in our representatives, and we said, we've gotta do something about this formula. And, I mean, it's just not gonna happen. It's an issue that started with ed reform back in '93, a lawsuit, you know, against the state, and they've never really done what they said they would do. And I don't think it's within our control, and especially because we're a town that has such a low tax rate.
I mean, and it's not only the calculation of Proposition 2.5, it goes beyond that. It's the calculation of, you know, the regional schools, which is back from the 1980s, that hasn't changed. So we're talking about what's happened between then and now, 30, 40 years, so, you know.
Just interrupt for a minute. It seems to me, after we get a better handle on drilling down on some of these things, I would have not the slightest I wouldn't have the slightest trouble asking local state representatives to come in here and explain it. And if they don't want to come in, that's fine.
I think
And
they'll
we
come,
just
I
tell-
just don't.
Well, but then
yeah.
they have to say, we can't help you.
And I think, you know, Bob has a little bit of an experience of that, right?
Yeah, I know, he told us.
And
Yeah.
so, I mean, we could.
But let him, but my put, let him do it in public, and let him come every year and say the same thing, that they can't help us.
I think to Terry's
Yeah, I
point,
think-
like, you know, talking about putting everything all on the table, all the cards on the table, I think going back to the form is gonna have the departments now talk about what they really want, you know, and what they, you know, what costs are associated
And
with
put
that.
some kind of explanation of why it's a good thing.
Yeah,
Several staff were added at the level of the town administrator in the past few years. I don't know if that's one of the reasons that the costs went up, but
like to know
you'll
that.
remember,
Yeah.
several
Yeah,
staff
yeah.
were
But you
added.
know, everything is predicated on what we bring in for revenue and what it's awarded to us off the cherry sheets. So we are more or less confined to those limits anyway. So they could want, you know, the moon and only get, you know, a little star. It's reality.
really, the
So if they
yeah.
put down what they want, that's great. I mean, everybody that's had anything to do with the budget, you always have a wish list, but you also have a reality check that goes with it.
Yeah, the mercy of communities in Massachusetts are at the mercy of local receipts
Correct.
and any new growth. That's really the only thing that can fluctuate in the budget, in
But
the
some of this,
revenues.
some of this ties into what the town should be doing, just those last 2 points that you mentioned. Economic development. I mean, we talk about it, and I found out from John, apparently, we had an economic development director that morphed into something else,
Moved into an assistant.
and apparently didn't bring in revenue. So, I mean, I think one of the
They
things.
did, but it was focused on grants, and it wasn't, what you're talking about is like workforce development or
I'm talking
finding
about
people to.
redevelopment of
Yeah,
Route 6,
Yeah,
or something, you
Yeah.
know, that sits up there moldering rather than
and
people
that could
trying
be part
to.
of planning too, you could see where that could be.
Right, so if you get enough of this stuff, and you can say, okay, we need X number of dollars of increased revenue, where can we get it? And then something like, I'm not advocating, I'm just saying, something like economic development becomes a reality, because you can discuss, well, how are we gonna meet that gap in the budget? So here's one alternative to do it.
Okay. But, you know, one of the points I'm trying to make is, that the town really is supporting the town government and the schools. It's the state aid
Yeah.
that's putting the pressure on the whole situation.
It's
That's-
not gonna change.
But,
What's that?
no, it's not going to change.
I understand.
Change. If anything, it's gonna go more to the cities. I feel like that is the
Always
focus,
has been.
because, like I said, they've never made the commitment. So let's take special ed. When special ed law was signed,
Yeah.
they were gonna provide 75%. They've never provided 75. It's been closer to 30. And towns end up having to make, and it's not fair, but it is what it is.
If you've seen the charts that we've put up for the last few years, you'll see that, I mean, state aid is pretty much flat.
Sure.
I mean, we're going all the way back to 2008.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're talking about,
It's just a straight line.
yeah. But if you've done that to other communities that are like in comparison to Dartmouth, or even the cities, state aid in those communities have been, but they're receiving 20 times more than the town of Dartmouth, you know? So an exercise that I had requested was that, you know, what do we see in other communities that are pretty much, like in kind to Dartmouth? Are they getting the exact same amount of state aid that we are, dollar for
Have
dollar?
you actually looked at that?
We need to work on that. That's
You
something we
can,
need
you
to work
can
on.
read it in the paper, you can
Yeah.
see across the Commonwealth, people are finding this, and some people are getting overrides passed, and some people are not.
Well,
It's
I
good.
hate to be a rabble rouser, but, I
You
mean,
hate
if
to
we
be a
can,
rabble rouser?
what, yeah. If
You're
we
running
can,
for office?
Sorry?
Why don't you run for office?
Oh, that'd be great.
You could help us.
too old. It seems to me, if you can identify those towns, then you can create common cause with those towns. And then you have a little bit more clout with local state politicians by saying, look, 15 or 10 towns in your
Right.
district have the same problem. What are you gonna do about it? Then it's just not Dartmouth. I'd be willing to take that project.
Okay. Well, I'm just, like I said, I'm trying to get to the bottom. The next thing I wanted to kind of talk about was schools, school buildings. And my own opinion is that we should always be paying for a school. We have 6 schools in this town. Is that right? 6 schools? We have 6 schools.
Yeah.
Well,
The
six
only
currently.
new one is the high school, and that's 25 years old, right? And I equate it to, because we're gonna end up paying for 2 schools at one time.
Yeah.
There's no question, we're gonna be in. So, I don't know if it's a policy but I think, and this is how I equate it. If you have like a family, it's just 2 parents and 2 kids, you usually have 2 cars, right? And I know me personally, when I was raising a family, would have a car, and then when that car was paid, we'd get another car. So we always had, and I think,
But that's you and your wife. So let's think about
Yeah.
a school. How do you decide? Because you're absolutely right. I
Yeah.
agree with you 100% that when that high school was paid off, we shouldn't have seen that money because it should have gone
Right.
towards somebody else.
Yeah.
But the political will to decide, first of all, we probably have a third of the town that wouldn't agree with doing it. And then where do you start, And that's why the plan that they came up with, back at the beginning of last year, was to say, what plan would benefit most? And that's where they talked about doing a high school behind the middle school and move the middle school to the high school, because then they could decrease the population in all the schools. They could bring the preschools, so every single part of the town would benefit from that. And you remember what the reaction was to that, because we've got people who are living paycheck to paycheck, and they can't imagine. So then you get through this whole process of how do you get people on board with that.
Right.
It's a logical
Yeah.
decision from where we're sitting here,
So
but
this brings up too, I mean, all these things, it's very interesting, they're all interconnected when it comes to revenue and expenditure. So, I mean, even planning, what kind of housing we want this
Exactly.
town to promote. If we're gonna have a choice of doing 100 units someplace, we should be encouraging folks that don't have children anymore, one of those,
Which we can't do legally,
Yeah,
but
can't
what
do
we
legally,
could
yeah.
do is say we're not gonna approve single-family houses.
or I didn't want to
And
go that
that's-
far,
and
but that was
yeah.
in the back of my
Yeah,
mind.
we're gonna approve multi-family housing, because that's
Period.
that's the best solution, but how popular is that? Who's gonna
I
go for that?
don't think it
Developers aren't gonna go
matters.
for
I
it.
think we have to put up for the right, recommend the right thing. I don't think it matters.
Well, I guess where I'm getting to, if you're not paying for a car, because a car's a big payment, right? The mortgage, car, right, and then everything else comes below. If you're not paying for a car, you're really misrepresenting your expenses, and that's what I think we're doing here. And I think,
That's why
I
Greg
don't
said,
know.
when we saw that big bump, he said, don't think that's anything real, because it's not. It should have been going into something else.
so
Explain
I
your point
guess,
a little bit better.
well, should we make a recommendation to the school committee that they should get going on a school?
Doesn't that come from capital plan?
I think they want to, but, I mean, we
I
could,
mean-
first of all, I don't think it's our role.
No.
But I think that they're aware of it and they want to do it, and it's a matter of how do they do it. They can't even get an operational budget approved right now. You know,
Right.
So, I think it makes sense, but
I think if they
I-
knew that they had the support of the finance committee, then they would think more seriously about it. I think right now they
Well, that's
feel like
kind of
they
my
don't
point, is
have
that
the support,
we
yeah.
should,
So Bob, yeah, I agree with you. I think that maybe we should offer the support to say, hey, this is what we think you should probably be doing.
because if they have 6 schools and they do one every 20 years,
Yep.
then you're gonna have a school that are 120 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not gonna be
You
a
know,
functional
so,
school.
But long-term capital is looking at a water treatment plant that's at capacity, that, you know, is gonna go into the past Manson at some point if you don't
yeah,
deal
but
with that.
that's an
right?
enterprise fund, that's a
You
little
have
bit
that,
different.
yeah.
That's an enterprise fund, but I just think,
If it's a good building, it's
I
okay.
think,
But it's still a tax.
yeah, no, it is a tax.
Yeah.
And
But it's
I spoke
priorities.
I spoke to somebody today who's retired, and I talked about the school budget, and they said, don't raise my taxes, I'm retired, I don't, you know, yeah.
It's usually, no one ever says raise my taxes.
Well, that's the mindset.
It is the mindset.
Well, but I mean, this is part of the opening up your kimono and showing all the things that, you know,
Yep.
that you need to do. And the fact that we're gonna have to make some decisions. And the
And I
more,
think
and more
that's-
information is the best.
And I do think that's our role, and I think that the long-term capital is also working on that.
So
I
you don't think it would be inappropriate for me to write a thing to the school committee saying that we think we should be the policy of that we're always paying for a school?
I think we get in trouble when
I don't
we
think
tell
we
them.
can- I don't think we can tell
I
them.
think they have to decide, and then I think when,
All right, okay.
when they decide it, I think.
We are the
don't-
FinCom.
You could, well,
You know
you
what?
could,
Hang on,
I'm sorry.
I think they have enough foresight. I mean, when I was on school committee, they always talked about new schools and all that. And I know they had that in the back of their minds. They also know that they're only gonna get so much money from the state and so on and so forth. What they will do and continue to do is they'll patch whatever they can do to keep these schools functional. Now, whether that becomes a law of diminishing return, at some point in time it will, because they're just gonna say, hey, we need a new school. But it's just a question of how much they can get and realistically, what they can expect from the state. I mean, how long did it take us, Terry, you have to go, I can't remember, it was back in the days of Lenny Gonzalez and those gentlemen there, that the new high school was built under, that was a long time ago. And we almost ran out of state money because we only had a year to capitalize on getting that money from the state, and they didn't do something within that last year. We were gonna lose all the funding, and the process would have to start all over again. So my point is, I'm sure the school committee is thinking of these things.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I
So-
I think the
I'm minding my
bigger
own
problem
business.
is how do they get a solvent budget? How do they get their budget supported and, you know, providing what's
It
needed?
seems to me that you could drop them a note saying your analysis of these numbers indicates that there's some planning should be going on for construction of a new
Yeah.
school.
I mean, you
And
could
just-
say,
and
I
say
don't
that-
think it's our role, and I don't think, we're
You don't
not
think
We
being
have to
asked.
respect their
We're not
knowledge.
being asked, and I think
Okay.
that the response from them would be, well, how about funding our budget?
That would be their
stop that, you know?
She's right.
Just a comment, I think that the Long-Term Capital Planning Committee does have, I mean, Jim Kiley's on there, obviously representing the schools. He's been in every one of the meetings, and he's really engaged in, you know, the school project, if that was to happen. But I think what the committee was charged with was, now, we've got all the data, we've got the projects that we think are the priority. How do we now promote that project, whatever that project is, if it's a school, if it's a septic treatment plant? So I think that's the goal, is to let the committee, and then work with whatever, if it's the school department, if it's the school committee, through Jim Kiley, we then vet that even
We
further.
need to do a better job communicating with not just town meeting, but the community. That handout was insufficient at the town meeting. I think we need to do more than that, and I'm sure we'll talk about that at the next meeting.
Well, I would submit my idea of,
Your idea.
well, I've talked about it for like 3 years, is getting a hold of, with town meeting members, and when we have these discussions, sending directly to town meeting members a condensed version of our discussion.
I think that's true. I'm thinking it needs to go beyond that too, because
That's
there's
the
a
place
lot
to
of people
start.
that.
I mean,
yeah.
you could do it on Dartmouth TV, too.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have
Yeah,
a
you could.
discussion. What? Yeah, I could.
Okay. All right, so.
You know, I like that idea, though. What Brian was just saying about, like, it doesn't have to be complicated. What if there was if there is a list of emails of all of the
Yeah,
town meeting
it
members?
exists.
What if you just copied a link to this meeting and said,
Oh,
a
yeah.
condensed, a paragraph, this is what we talked about, here, view it.
Right,
Like,
or here are the main points. Why don't you
I
take a
know
look?
that they can go do
Actually,
it on
that
their
would
own,
be
but to be
better than
honest,
what
as
we've
the
been
meeting
talking
member,
about,
I would
'cause-
have never gone to do it on my own if I didn't know what was in it. Like, I just wouldn't think to do it.
So what you
But
could,
if you gave me an email reminder, like, hey, this is up, this is what you should go
That
look
would be a
at.
way to do
Here's
it.
a
I never
condensed
thought of that,
little
but-
paragraph,
do like
bullets
a
even.
paragraph of the main points discussed.
Yeah, just like some bullets
And then a
even.
link to the, and send it to every town
And you'll
meeting.
pique people's interest to say, oh, let me go listen to that.
And I think we should be
It's not
inviting
complicated.
as many of those town meetings, meeting members, if they're interested in a particular subject, to show up at our meeting and put their
Right.
2 cents in. All right,
Well,
like,
Right.
well,
I
Nathan
like
Silva
it.
wants to come in, so I told him, give him some time. All right, so I'm gonna keep
Thanks,
working on
Bob.
this. I'm gonna keep working on this. And we'll see where we end up. Liaison reports. Do you wanna go ahead, Terry?
So the school department completed their strategic planning process. They have a strategic plan. It was voted on October 7th. The finance committee, the select board, and the school committee were invited to come to that meeting, not as a joint meeting, but Bob came, Kerry, me, Gary, to that presentation. The select board meeting was that night, so I'm sure that's why they couldn't be there. It's a different process than what you, in the corporate world, would be going through.
Yeah.
I do have, I went back through the, so just to give you an idea of what their process was. They did surveys, they did town, kind of listening sessions with any community members who came. They had a committee of 30 people that were representative of all facets of the government, and they met 7 or 8 times and looked at what they call it is, let me just say it correctly. It's not strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's strengths, challenges, opportunities, and risks. Same thing. I can send this page to you. I think what's difficult, and what I think about all the time when I'm listening to these meetings, and you probably think this as well, is it's a kind of an insular conversation, and the people who are involved in it kind of know what they're talking about, and sometimes it's like, teaching and learning, or you get up and ask a question, what's vertical alignment of the curriculum? It's a great question, because, and lots of people wouldn't ask. So it's getting that information from the school department, this information into a manageable kind of, I don't know if it's bite-sized pieces or what it is, but we've got to work on that, because They can move along and they have their goals set up, and you can go to the website and look at the strategic plan, but I will extract this one page and send it to all of you so that you can see it. Obviously, staffing is an issue, getting staff, keeping staff because of benefits primarily. The ESPs are the ones who, the educational support professionals are the people who probably pay the most in terms of health benefits and get, the smallest salaries, because they're not on the same schedule as everybody else. Just so that you know, Fall River right now is in the process of getting ready to strike. They were offered 5, 5, and 5, which is unheard of for public schools.
Five
And they
meaning,
rejected
5
it.
each year?
3-year contract, 5% every year. No, they don't, and that's pretty much across the Commonwealth.
So,
Is it benefits?
It's salary, that's just salary. I'm sure there are other things, but that particular thing was just
No, but
salary.
with the 5 and 5, it didn't satisfy them. What's their gripe? Because that's
It's not enough.
a damn good raise.
It's not
What did
enough.
they want? Do you know what they requested,
So
Terry?
that's their gripe? It's not enough money?
Yeah.
Wow. It's not
And
benefits.
they're not alone. And, you've probably seen in the paper that it's pretty much across the Commonwealth that people are, and the MTA, they just got rid of MCAS as a graduation requirement, which is, I don't even want to get into that. So their focuses are teaching and learning, safe and supportive schools, family and community engagement. That's the big thing for me, because I want to figure out how to get this information to the average person on the street. And then budget and capital improvement. So all of these things are on their radar. Their biggest issue is the issue of funding the budget. And you'll see that on here. You had asked, or somebody had asked, why not go for an override right now? I think the feeling of the school committee is that there's no town administrator. They're looking for somebody to be a partner in this process. They have enough from the school choice funds to kind of get by for a while. And Jim Kiley is in the process of working with the principals, the superintendent, of developing a budget very early in the process. As soon as he gets that out. We had a budget subcommittee meeting too, and Bob
Yeah, I
shared
was late for
some of
that.
this, but you shared some of this information with them, and it's a little bit frustrating because it feels like it's taking a long time to get it, but I understand why it is, because they don't have all the information that they need to do it right now. He's gonna probably end up doing 2 budgets, looking at what they can do with this amount of money and what they can do with this amount of money. So the strategic plan, the budget subcommittee meeting, in terms of what bang do you get for your buck, the Dartmouth Color Guard and Marching Band is like unbelievable champions across the country.
Oh, yeah,
They
yeah.
grow it, and
My
and
kids
they're
were in
very
it.
well known for it,
Yeah.
and that's not something
Yeah.
that the school funds. That's funded by Friends of Dartmouth Music.
Yeah.
And there are other,
Music Association, yeah.
after-school programs, they're just not being funded by the school the way they need to. Their transportation
They raised $100,000.
contract's going up, we heard about that again, it's not within their control. Special ed, high needs kids, they have all the things that you've heard before, but it still remains that the budget is. And on that issue of the 5, 5, and 5, that's not Dartmouth, that's Fall River, but because they're a neighborhood school
Yeah,
department, I think it becomes relevant. I guess that's all. Does anybody have any questions about school?
Yeah, I just want to make a couple points. She presented a strategic plan, but at a very high level.
Yep.
Very high level. And I actually, at the subcommittee, I wanted to ask a couple of questions, but she wasn't at the subcommittee meeting. But, one of the things, and I'll wait to get that from you, but one of the questions I'd have is, what's a threat? And one of the threats is a declining enrollment.
Yeah.
And when you have declining enrollment, that creates, issues in matching,
Right.
so that, and I want to see if
Declining
that's
enrollment.
addressed. I want to see if that's addressed.
Declining enrollment paired with increased need.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
with increased what?
Need
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
need
Of students.
Yeah.
the other thing I'm interested in is, I won't say it's easy, but the metrics for measuring the success of the education is easier, but what are the metrics for the wellness? Because there's, in today's education, there's education and there's wellness.
There's a
And so-
metric for that.
Okay, all right, so
So
that's what I'm,
you'll
okay,
see it,
okay,
yeah. And I think that, I'm prepared for you guys to see it. I'm gonna have this
All right,
information.
all right,
ready
yeah,
for
no,
you.
I just,
So they have to measure that. They have to report that now to the Department of Ed in terms of staffing, but also in terms of feedback from students, feedback from parents.
So what do they do, qualitative research on what
Say
the
it
stu-
again?
What do they do, qualitative research on what the students feel they're receiving?
I wouldn't make it that, because it's not comprehensive, but they do surveys. They ask parents to fill out surveys. They do surveys for students. They'll do small groups with students, and then the people who provide those services would report to people. So I don't think it's like a research project in that respect, but that's the idea. It's not quantitative, yeah.
Can't be,
Well,
can't be, can't play a number to it.
The capital improvement hasn't met other than the town meeting,
Oh,
long-term
we have
capital.
we have a meeting scheduled for the 22nd.
Yeah,
oh, I'm not gonna be, oh.
but there's nothing really new to tell people, right?
anybody else have any liaison reports?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I talked with Amy DePietro today, and as soon as the form is available, and so she can take a first crack at it, I'll be sitting down with her, so hopefully we can get things ironed out before we get into the real nitty-gritty after the first of the year.
Yeah, just to piggyback off what Terry said, I had a conversation with Jim Kiley about a week ago. Just, high-level discussion on the budget. I know that he's meeting with the, every time he meets with the school department, the school committee, he is briefing them on the budget. No hard numbers yet, but as we start to get closer to the end of the calendar year, he will be, providing that to us. So we want to keep that open line of communication with the schools. And I told him, I said, we should, meet more frequently as we get closer to the end of the calendar year and then more into the fiscal year, but
Meaning the finance committee?
him and myself.
Oh, yourself, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a standing agenda item on their school committee. agenda.
The school committee is gonna be using the new form, too.
Well, it'll be the schools.
School, sorry.
Yeah.
School, sorry, school administration.
Yeah, I mean, we'll let them go through their normal presentation, but this form becomes very important.
Yeah, and in the calendar
Because-
too, we schedule them, we're scheduling them for different days, so DPW,
Thank you.
police. Yeah.
Oh, God, yes.
Yes,
Yeah, police, DPW, and
Yeah.
the schools should be separate.
I just want to say one thing about DPW. I want to let people know, and I don't know if it was taped, but the New Bedford Light held a community conversation. They do those, and Rob Almay was on the panel. It was very interesting to hear Westport, Fairhaven, Dartmouth, and there was somebody from the Buzzards Bay Coalition there. But they talked about a lot of the issues that we've been dealing with and what people are running into. Fairhaven is in the process of upgrading their whole water treatment system. Westport doesn't even have town sewer, which is, that just blew my mind. I didn't know that. So
Oh,
it was,
yeah. No
it
refuse.
was very interesting to hear. I
very
think we're lucky to have
controversial.
some of the people we have on our committees that we have. He did a great job.
Was good, I was there.
You were there?
I was.
I didn't see you.
You were on the other side of the room.
Oh, I was being pigeonholed by somebody who was there who wanted to talk to me about, yeah.
No, I'm glad Chris Micho's
It was
getting,
good though, wasn't
It
it
was
good?
very good, it was very good.
Chris Micho's getting more involved in holding the composters accountable. So,
On the compost,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
anything else on liaisons? Or? All right, so these are the minutes from the actual meeting at,
I'll make a motion to approve.
okay, so Terry made a motion to approve. Somebody want a second?
I'm gonna have to abstain, I was not
Okay,
I'll abstain, I wasn't there either.
okay. Janine was second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? I hear none. It passes. Okay. Anything else before we close?
Good, with a minute to spare.
That's all I have.
It's all in your package.
So when are we meeting next?
It's not till February.
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 Well, I'm
It
gonna,
seems wrong.
That's not long, but.
I mean, obviously, we're now internally, the administration will work to get all this
Yeah, yeah,
information.
yeah.
That's where we are right now.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever met in November. We kind of,
No, but
our
we've
first
met in
meetings were
We met
like,
in January, I'm pretty sure.
yeah.
I think as far as the form goes, if one of your liaisons asks you for help, because I think some of these people are gonna need help doing that form.
Right.
I think we should make ourselves available to them outside of this meeting.
I'll mention that at the department head meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
When are you sending, with the department meeting is the 18th, you said?
November 18th, yeah.
Because Parks meeting is on the 12th, so I won't,
I'll be it's at 5:30.
yeah.
Yeah,
you'll
I'll be at
there?
that meeting, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, someone wanna,
Make a motion to adjourn.
Brian making a motion to adjourn? Second by Phil. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving.
Holidays.